How much is my house worth in Loudoun County right now? If you own a home in Loudoun County, there's a good chance you've wondered recently, how much is my house actually worth right now? And if you go online looking for that answer, you're probably going to see numbers all over the place. As of mid-2026, depending on the data source and the time period you're looking at, the median home sale price in Loudoun County is somewhere between roughly $720,000 and $753,000. But here's the problem. That number isn't your number, because what your house is actually worth depends on your specific neighborhood, your home's condition, and most importantly, what comparable homes near you have actually sold for over the last 90 days. And that's why, if you really want to know what your house is worth, I wouldn't rely solely on an online estimate. I'd start with a comparative market analysis, or CMA. I'm Johnny with JQ Real Estate, and I pull CMAs for Loudoun County homeowners every week. So here's exactly how I'd walk you through figuring out what your house is actually worth in today's market. First, the Loudoun County average doesn't tell you as much as you might think. Loudoun County is enormous, and the housing market isn't uniform across the county. Western Loudoun, places like Round Hill, Hamilton, and Purcellville, has been running hotter than the county average, with some pockets seeing double-digit year-over-year price growth. Meanwhile, areas closer to Dulles or near active data center construction are moving at a different pace entirely. So when somebody says, homes in Loudoun County are worth $735,000, that's a blended number. You're taking dozens of very different neighborhoods, different property types, different price points, and different micro markets, and rolling all of that into one number. And that's why, when we're trying to figure out what your house is worth, your street can matter more than the county line. So what actually determines your home's value? There are 5 things I'm going to pay close attention to. Number 1, recent comparable sales. And this is probably the most important piece of the entire analysis. I want to see homes similar to yours that have actually sold, preferably within the last 30 to 90 days, and ideally within about half a mile of your property. And there's an important distinction here. I'm talking about homes that have sold, not just homes that are currently listed, because somebody can list a house for whatever price they want. That doesn't mean a buyer is willing to pay it. A closed sale tells us what somebody actually agreed to pay for that property. That's much stronger evidence of value. Number 2, the condition of your house and the updates you've made. 2 houses can have the same basic floor plan, similar square footage, and sit in the same neighborhood and still sell for very different prices. Maybe you've replaced your kitchen within the last 5 years. Maybe you've replaced the HVAC. Maybe you've finished your basement. Those improvements can move the number meaningfully. On the other hand, deferred maintenance can move the value in the opposite direction. That's one of the reasons simply looking at square footage and bedroom count isn't enough. You have to understand the actual condition of the property. Number 3, days on market. Right now, Loudoun County homes are taking about 46 days to sell on average. A year ago, that number was around 33 days. That's important, because it tells us buyers have a little more room to negotiate than they did during the much more aggressive market we saw in 2023 and 2024. That doesn't mean homes aren't selling. They are. But buyers may have more time to evaluate a property, compare it against competing listings, and negotiate. And as a seller, that changes the pricing conversation. Number 4, the sale-to-list price ratio. Right now, homes in Loudoun County are selling at about 99.4% of asking price. So generally speaking, sellers are still landing pretty close to their asking prices. We're not talking about a market where everything is selling dramatically below list price. But that ratio has softened slightly year over year. And when you combine that with the increase in days on market, it gives us a much better picture of what's actually happening. Homes are still selling relatively close to asking price, but buyers aren't necessarily operating with the same urgency they had a couple of years ago. And number 5, location within Loudoun County. Proximity to a metro station, VRE, or a major employer corridor can create a real measurable premium. That's not just something that sounds good in a listing description. Location and access can materially affect what buyers are willing to pay. And again, that's why looking at the countywide median isn't enough. Now let's talk about Zillow. One of the most common questions I get is my Zillow estimate accurate? And the answer is, not necessarily. This trips up a lot of sellers. Automated home value estimates are using public records and broad algorithms to estimate the value of your property. But the computer doesn't necessarily know everything that's happened inside your house. It may not know that you finished your basement. It may not understand that your neighbor's identical model sold for $40,000 more because it had a lot premium. And it may not understand that the house 2 doors down sold quickly because the seller intentionally priced it aggressively to move. Those details matter. So if you've looked online recently and noticed your Zestimate has dropped, that doesn't automatically mean something happened specifically to your house. It could simply be reflecting a broader cooling trend in the market. That's the difference between an automated estimate and a CMA. With a CMA, we're pulling actual recent comparable sales and then adjusting for the differences that a computer may not be able to see. So let's look at the Loudoun County numbers. As of the most recently available data we're looking at for this analysis, Redfin reported a median sale price of about $735,000 in November 2025. The Dulles Area Association of Realtors reported a median sale price of approximately $753,000 in June 2026. The Zillow Home Value Index was approximately $720,713. Average days on market are around 46 days, compared with 33 days a year ago. The sale-to-list price ratio is approximately 99.4%. And Loudoun County's 2026 real property tax rate is $0.805 per $100 of assessed value. Now, those numbers are going to shift from month to month. So if you're actually preparing to price a property, you always want to confirm the most current numbers available at that time. But collectively, these numbers give us a snapshot of where the market is right now. So what does all of this mean if you're thinking about selling? The market has cooled slightly from its peak, and that means pricing accurately from day one matters more than it did 2 years ago. Because one of the biggest mistakes you can make in this kind of environment is overpricing the house from the beginning. When a property sits on the market for 45, 50, or 60 days, buyers start asking questions. They see that days on market number. And even if there's absolutely nothing wrong with the house, psychologically they start wondering, why hasn't somebody bought this? Or, what's wrong with it? And that's where overpricing can start to backfire. Because instead of creating leverage for the seller, the extended time on market can create leverage for the buyer. And you can end up selling the property for less than you potentially could have if it had been positioned and priced correctly from the beginning. That's why understanding the actual market around your house matters so much. Not just Loudoun County, not just Northern Virginia, your neighborhood, your street, your competing homes, and your recent comparable sales. And if you're considering moving somewhere else within Northern Virginia, there are other numbers worth looking at too. For example, how Loudoun County's current property tax rate compares with Fairfax County could matter when you're deciding where you want to move. And if you're specifically in Ashburn, you'll want to look at how average sale prices are trending there rather than relying on the overall Loudoun County number. So, how much is your house worth? The county averages are a starting point. They're not the answer. If you actually want to know what your specific house would likely sell for in today's market, I'll run a free comparative market analysis using actual recent sales around your property. We'll look at what's sold. We'll look at what's currently competing with you. We'll look at condition. We'll look at days on market. We'll look at the differences between those properties and yours. And then we'll use that information to determine a realistic range for what your home could sell for in today's market. No automated guesswork. If you own a home in Loudoun County and you want to know what it's actually worth, reach out to me. I'm Johnny with JQ Real Estate. Send me your property information and I'll put together the CMA and have it back to you within a day or two.